Assalamualaikum and good day, everyone. Today, I'm here to talk about something that might sound familiar to many of you, the dining dilemmas that urban Muslims face every day. We look at what happens when Malaysian Muslims encounter restaurants that don't have halal certification, but also don't serve anything obviously forbidden like pork or alcohol. So normally these restaurants are having these labels like no pork, no lard, no alcohol, or Muslim friendly. So, what goes through their minds when they are deciding whether to eat there or not? This might seem like a small question, but it's actually becoming more relevant as our cities become more diverse and food scenes getting more complex. This is a descriptive study conducted together with my final year students at the Faculty of Agrobusiness Industry, University Malaysia Kelantan. So here's the thing about Malaysia. We are known worldwide as this halal hub with really comprehensive certification system. So you think that would make things simple, right? But it doesn't. The reality is that Muslims, especially in urban areas, constantly run into restaurants that don't have that official halal certificate. Maybe it's a new place that's still working on certification, or maybe it's a non-Muslim owned restaurant that just happens to serve food that would be acceptable to Muslims. Now, most research on halal food assume people just look for the certificate and that's it. Certified is good, not certified is bad. But that's not really how the real world works, is it? There are all these gray areas where people have to make judgment calls. That's what we wanted to understand. What actually influences this decision when usual rules don't give you a clear answer? We had two main questions. First, what factors matter most when Malaysian Muslims are deciding whether to eat at these non-certified places? And secondly, do practical things like convenience and taste matter more than what people around you think you should do? So basically, we wanted to know if the old assumption that religious food choices are all about following community expectation still holds up. So, we surveyed around 101 urban Malaysian Muslims between January and February this year, 2025. And these people were aged around 15 to 40 years old, about evenly split between men and women, and all living in cities where they actually encounter this kind of dining situation. We use standard psychological scales, the kind where you rate how much you agree with a segment on 1 to 5 scale, and we measure attitudes about these restaurants, how much social pressure people felt, how much control they thought they had over their choices, and ultimately whether they actually be willing to eat at these places. Now, I need to be upfront about our limitation. This was a convenient sample, so we cannot really claim that it represents all Malaysian Muslims, and we only looked at urban population, and our sample size was good enough for what we did, but not for more complex analysis. When you look at our numbers, there's this really puzzling disconnect. People scored 3.47 on attitudes, so they're sitting on the fence about these restaurants. Not excited, but not completely turned off either. But then when we ask if they actually eat there, they scored only 2.37, and that's a pretty big gap. So what's going on here? Well, it could be that when people say they have moderate attitudes, they're actually wrestling with competing feeling. Maybe they appreciate that restaurant is convenient and has good food, but they're still uncomfortable about the religious aspect. So our scale might be averaging out these conflicting emotions rather than capturing the real complexity. The social pressure things is even weirder. People clearly felt strong community pressure. 4.17 out of 5, they know their community doesn't approve. But when we looked at whether this pressure actually influenced their decision, we found almost no relationship. It's like they are aware of what people expect, but they are not letting it drive their choices. This challenges everything we thought that we knew about religious food decision. The textbook says social pressure should be the main driver, but that's just not what we're seeing with urban Malaysian Muslims. These findings challenge some pretty fundamental assumptions. It looks like religious food choices, at least in urban Malaysia, are not primarily driven by what the community think they should do. Urban Muslims seems to be making sophisticated judgment that weigh multiple factors. What happened in country is that the psychological framework, like normally researchers use, for example, like in this research, TBB, which were developed in Western circular context or Western countries, might not capture actually how people in religious collectivistic society like Malaysia and Southeast Asian countries actually make decisions. We are seeing evidence that young urban Muslims integrate all kind of factors when making food choices, not just religious compliance, but also convenience, quality, and personal preferences. The traditional reliance on house certification alone seems to be evolving. So, what does all this mean? First, attitudes matter more than social pressure when urban Malaysian Muslims are deciding whether to eat at non-certified places. This challenges the ideas that religious consumption is primarily about following community expectation. And for food businesses, this suggests they should focus on transparency. You let people know that you don't have certification, but you are providing uh, non-alcohol, no pork, no lard, and focusing on quality foods and convenience alongside religious compliance. Because religious compliance nowadays is not the only determining factors that people are going to decide are they going to dine at your establishment or not. And for researchers, we clearly need measurement tools or new framework that are designed for religious context, not just adapted from circular ones like TPB that we are normally use. And looking forward for this research, we need bigger studies, more than probably to represent the entire countries in Malaysia, and using a better power analysis, a better measurement tools and research that looks at different Muslim communities to see if these patterns hold up. Probably we can conduct specifically by using strata sampling for each state in Malaysia to see if the findings from this study can be replicated or not. Before I finish, I want to leave you with this thought. This research started with a simple question about restaurant choices, but this really opened up bigger questions about how we understand religious consumers in our modern world. The Muslim in our study are not just following rules handed down from their community, they are actively weighing options. Considering practical factors and making nuanced decisions. That tells us something important not just about halal food choices, but about how religious identity adapts and evolves in urban multicultural environments. For those of you working in food studies, consumer behaviors, or religious studies, I think this suggests we need to move beyond simpler compliance model and start recognizing the sophisticated decision making that religious consumers actually engage in. The real challenge for future research is not just getting bigger sample size or better measurement tools, though we definitely need those. It's developing framework that can capture the complexity of how people balance ancient values with modern realities. And that's a challenge that goes well beyond food choices. It's about understanding how tradition and modernity intersect in all aspects of contemporary life. Thank you again, and I'll be happy to take any questions.